Picture this. You're walking home alone at night. The street is quiet, maybe a little too quiet. You get that feeling. You know the one, like someone's watching you. You turn around, but there's nothing there, just shadows. You pick up your pace, and that's when you feel it. Ice-cold fingers wrapping around your throat. Welcome to the world of the Kubikajiri, one of Japan's most terrifying monsters that somehow never got as famous as other creatures like the kappa or the kitsune. And trust me, after you hear these stories, you'll understand why this thing is so scary that people don't even want to talk about it. The name Kubikajiri literally means neck-biter in Japanese. Kubi equals neck, kajiri equals to bite or gnaw. Yeah, it's exactly as horrifying as it sounds. Where did this monster come from? The stories about the Kubikajiri go way back to ancient Japan, around the year 800 to 1100 AD. This was a time when people believed monsters and ghosts were absolutely real. And honestly, when you hear what was happening back then, you can see why. Imagine living in old Kyoto. There's no electricity, no hospitals, no police. People are dying from diseases nobody understands, and sometimes people are found dead with their throats torn out. No explanation, no witnesses, just bodies with savage wounds that don't look like they were made by any animal anyone recognizes. What would you think? Yeah, monster. That's the only thing that makes sense when you don't have CSI or forensic science. Some legends say the first Kubikajiri was actually a person, a woman who died of a broken heart after being betrayed by her lover. Her grief and rage were so intense that she couldn't just die peacefully. Instead, she transformed into something else, something that would take away other people's breath, and life, just like hers, had been stolen. Other stories say the Kubikajiri is way older than that, like ancient, something that existed before humans even showed up. A predator that's always been lurking in the darkness, waiting for us to let our guard down. What does it look like? Here's where it gets really creepy. Nobody can agree on what the Kubikajiri actually looks like. And that's what makes it so terrifying, because you never know what to watch out for. Some people describe it as this pale, super skinny humanoid thing with arms and fingers that are way too long. Its fingers end in sharp points like claws, but the worst part is its face. Picture this. Barely any features at all, just smooth, pale skin, except for its mouth. The mouth takes up half of its face and is filled with rows and rows of needle-sharp teeth that are always wet and glistening. Other people say it's more like a shadow, something that's not fully solid until it attacks. Survivors talk about feeling this unnatural cold, and then the darkness itself seems to wrap around their throat and become solid. Like the monster is the darkness. But here's the worst version. Some stories say the Kubikajiri looks completely normal, completely human, beautiful even. It might appear as a friendly stranger who offers to walk with you or help you with something, and you have no idea what it really is until it's too late. Then the human face just peels away, or the mouth opens impossibly wide. We're talking jaw unhinging like a snake, and you see what's really underneath. No matter which version of the story you hear, everyone agrees on one thing. When it grabs you, you cannot break free. Its hands are supernaturally strong, like iron clamps. People who survive say the creature's touch leaves permanent marks, not just scars, but shadow-like stains on their skin that never fully go away. How it hunts you. The Kubikajiri isn't just some mindless monster that attacks random people. No, this thing is smart, patient. It stalks its prey like a serial killer. According to the legends, the monster is drawn to certain types of people. If you're lonely, isolated, traveling alone, you're in danger. It seems to sense emotional loneliness just as much as physical isolation. Widows, hermits, people who've withdrawn from their friends and family. These are its favorite targets. And it doesn't just attack right away. Oh no. The Kubikajiri will follow you for days, even weeks, watching you. During this time, victims report all kinds of creepy things happening. That constant feeling of being watched. Seeing something moving in the corner of your eye that vanishes when you look directly at it. Waking up with unexplained scratches on your neck. Nightmares about being strangled or suffocated, night after night. These aren't random occurrences. The creature is marking its territory. It's claiming you, letting you know you're already its prey. The psychological torture is part of the hunt. The monster is supposed to be most active between 2 and 3 a.m. You know, that time when the night is darkest and everything feels wrong. It also loves new moon nights, when there's barely any light at all. And it has favorite hunting spots. Crossroads, bridges, the edges of villages where civilization meets wilderness, doorways and thresholds. Basically, any place that's in between, not quite one thing or another. These liminal spaces are where the barrier between our world and the supernatural is thinnest. Interestingly, the legends say some people are safer than others. If you're strongly connected to your community, if you have close relationships with friends and family, the Kubikajiri seems to avoid you. It's like human connection creates a protective barrier. Married couples are supposedly safer than single people traveling alone. The attack, the most horrifying part. Okay, this is where it gets really disturbing. The way the Kubikajiri attacks is described in such consistent detail across different stories that it's genuinely unsettling. First, you suddenly can't move. You're paralyzed. But here's the nightmare part. You're still completely conscious and aware of everything that's happening. You're trapped in your own body, unable to scream, unable to run, while this thing approaches you in the darkness. Then it touches you. Survivors describe the touch as feeling both burning hot and freezing cold at the same time, like the creature doesn't follow normal laws of physics. Its grip is unbreakable. The more you try to struggle, the tighter it holds, and the more excited it seems to get. Then comes the bite itself. People who survived say it's not just pain. Beyond pain. You feel physical tearing, yes, but also something deeper, like something essential is being pulled out of you. Your life force, your spirit, your very essence. The Kubikajiri isn't just killing you. It's feeding on something more fundamental than blood. The attack can last seconds, or it can go on for minutes that feel like hours. Some victims black out and wake up later with no memory of how it ended. Just terrible wounds on their throat, and this feeling of being hollow, like something was permanently taken from them, that they'll never get back. When someone dies from a Kubikajiri attack, it's distinctive. The wounds are ragged and torn, covered in some kind of unknown substance. The injuries get infected fast and don't respond to normal treatment. And get this, the bodies are completely drained of blood. Way more blood than should be possible from just throat wounds. The victims' faces are frozen in expressions of absolute terror. Real stories that'll keep you up at night. Now, you might be thinking, Okay, cool story, but it's just folklore, right? Well, there are supposedly documented cases throughout Japanese history that believers point to as evidence this thing is real. The Village of Seven Deaths. Around 1615, in a small village in Fukushima, 7 people died in 1 month, all found with their throats torn out. The villagers were terrified and started staying inside after dark, traveling in groups, all the safety measures. Didn't matter. People kept dying. The 7th victim was found inside a locked house with no signs of forced entry. Think about that. Either this thing can walk through walls, or it was invited in by someone who didn't know what it was. Called in a famous spiritual expert, an onmyoji, to deal with it. He performed rituals for 3 nights straight. People reported seeing strange lights and hearing weird sounds all over the village. On the 4th day, he announced the creature was bound, but not killed, because things like this can't be truly destroyed. The attacks stopped, but the village was abandoned within a generation. The people who stayed said they could still feel something wrong there, something watching and waiting. The Tokyo boarding house mystery, fast forward to the late 1800s, during Japan's modernization period. A Western-educated doctor in Tokyo documented something he couldn't explain with science. 5 people in the same boarding house died over 6 months, all from throat trauma. But here's what freaked out the doctor. The wounds looked like they were made by human teeth, but they were way too deep and extensive for any normal human jaw. His diary entries show he was a rational, scientific man, slowly coming to believe something supernatural was responsible. That's terrifying, watching someone's worldview shatter in real time. World War II soldiers. There are scattered military reports from World War II of soldiers in remote areas reporting attacks by something they couldn't identify. Most of these were dismissed as hallucinations from stress or enemy action. But some descriptions match the Kubikajiri legends perfectly, including details the soldiers wouldn't have known about. One report describes an entire squad finding their teammate dead in his tent, with his sentries were posted all night. Nobody heard anything. How does that happen? Modern sightings. Even today, there are posts on Japanese paranormal forums from people claiming encounters with the Kubikajiri. Sure, internet stories are easy to fake, but some of these accounts include details from obscure historical texts that most people wouldn't know about unless they'd done serious research or actually experienced something. Why this monster is so scary, psychologically speaking. Let's talk about why the Kubikajiri is so effective as a horror concept, because there's some deep psychological stuff going on here. First, the throat. It's one of the most vulnerable parts of your body. Your carotid arteries, your windpipe, your spine. All right there with basically no protection. An attack on your throat is an attack on your ability to breathe, to speak, to live. We instinctively protect our throats. The Kubikajiri targets that exact vulnerability. Second, there's a horrible intimacy to this monster's attack method. It has to get close, really close. Face to face, mouth to neck. It's almost like a perverse embrace or a dark parody of a lover's kiss. That violation of personal space, that corruption of intimacy, adds a psychological dimension to the physical horror. Third, that paralysis. You know what's really interesting? The paralysis described in Kubikajiri attacks sounds exactly like sleep paralysis. That terrifying experience where you wake up but can't move, and you feel like something's in the room with you. People who've experienced sleep paralysis say it's one of the most frightening things that can happen to you. The Kubikajiri legend may have originated partly as an explanation for these episodes. And finally, this monster represents the fear of isolation. It attacks when you're alone, when you're separated from your community, when there's nobody to help you. In traditional Japanese society, where community and social bonds were everything, being alone was genuinely dangerous. The Kubikajiri is a physical manifestation of what happens when those protective social connections break down. How to protect yourself, according to legend. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you think a Kubikajiri might be after you, here's what the legends say you should do. Stay connected. This is the #1 defense. Don't travel alone, especially at night. Maintain strong friendships and family relationships. The monster is like a predator that singles out the weak and isolated from the herd. Protective items. In areas where these legends are strong, people would hang dried fish heads or specific herbs around their doors and windows. The smell supposedly keeps the creature away. Shinto shrines would give out special protective amulets, specifically designed to ward off neck-biting entities. Religious help. If you think you're being stalked, go to a shrine or temple immediately. Priests could perform purification rituals. Some villages would build small shrines at crossroads where the Kubikajiri hunted, making offerings to appease or distract it. Never be alone at night. Pretty straightforward. If the legends are true, this thing won't attack groups. Cross boundaries. Some stories say the Kubikajiri is territorial. If you can get far enough away, cross certain boundaries, you might break its claim on you. Face your fears. Weirdly, some accounts suggest that people who've already experienced extreme fear and survived are less attractive to the Kubikajiri, like it wants the taste of innocence and first-time terror. If an entire area was believed to be haunted by a Kubikajiri, they'd bring in spiritual experts to perform elaborate banishment rituals. These could take days and required all kinds of preparation, fasting, purification, creating spiritual barriers. Communities that did these rituals often reported that the attacks stopped afterward. Regional differences across Japan. Different parts of Japan have their own versions of the Kubikajiri legend, which makes it feel more real somehow. Like, if people all over the country are reporting similar things with local variations, that's how real phenomena work, right? Northern Japan. In the snowy Tohoku region, they call it the snow throat. It attacks during blizzards, and victims are found frozen with blood staining the snow. This version supposedly moves silently through snow without leaving tracks, like it's gliding or made of wind itself. Mountain regions. In the Japanese Alps and other mountainous areas, the Kubikajiri is sometimes seen as a guardian or punishment spirit. It attacks people who disrespect the mountains, littering, being too loud, failing to make proper offerings at mountain shrines. Basically, don't mess with nature, or the Kubikajiri will get you. Coastal areas. Fishing villages have stories of the Kubikajiri coming from the sea, dripping wet and cold. Some fishermen say they've seen figures matching its description, standing on rocks far out in the ocean, just watching and waiting. Cities. In Tokyo and Osaka, the urban legend version has the Kubikajiri disguising itself in crowds, looking completely human, while it selects victims from the anonymous masses. This represents fear about losing community in big, impersonal cities. Kyoto region. The oldest and richest traditions come from around Kyoto, Japan's ancient capital. Here, the Kubikajiri is sometimes portrayed as more tragic, a being caught between human and monster, occasionally showing flashes of its former humanity before the savage nature takes over again. The Kubikajiri in modern times. Today, the Kubikajiri exists in a weird place in Japanese culture. It's not completely forgotten, but it hasn't been turned into a cute mascot or anime character like other yokai. And honestly, that might be because it's just too horrifying to commercialize. When it does appear in modern media, horror manga, novels, movies, it's usually in adult-oriented content. The creature resists being made cute or family-friendly. The core concept is just too viscerally terrifying. Some modern horror writers have used Kubikajiri-inspired creatures to explore themes of urban isolation and disconnection. The traditional warning about staying connected to your community is super relevant today, when you can live in a city of millions and still feel completely alone. Paranormal researchers in Japan do occasionally investigate reports of unexplained throat attacks, though they usually look for conventional explanations. But in rural areas, when something weird happens, people still sometimes whisper about the Kubikajiri. Psychologists and folklorists have studied this legend as a window into historical fears and traumas. The monster might represent anxieties about violence, disease, especially tuberculosis and other throat diseases, social isolation, and the fear of the unknown. By giving these fears a physical form, maybe communities could talk about and process things that were too scary to face directly. What does it all mean? At its core, the Kubikajiri represents something deep about human fear and vulnerability. This isn't like a dragon or a giant monster, external threats you can see coming. This is personal, intimate. A threat that knows you, targets you specifically, and exploits your deepest vulnerabilities. The neck-biting method forces closeness, a terrible embrace. It's not the distant danger of a storm or an impersonal disease. It's something that has to touch you, get close enough that you can feel it, invade your personal space in the most violating way possible. The Kubikajiri also represents darkness in both literal and metaphorical senses. It operates in the dark when we can't see or protect ourselves. But it also represents the darkness within, the potential for humans to become monsters, the thin line between civilization and savagery. There's also this theme of inevitability in many stories. Once it's marked you, escape seems impossible. That speaks to deep anxieties about fate and control, the fear that sometimes, no matter what we do, bad things are going to happen anyway. The final word. Whether you believe in literal monsters or see the Kubikajiri as pure folklore and cultural mythology, you have to admit it's an incredibly effective horror concept. It hits on primal fears that exist across all cultures. Vulnerability, isolation, violence, and things that hunt us in the darkness. The Kubikajiri endures in Japanese culture, not because it's been commercialized or made safe, but because it touches something fundamental in the human psyche. It reminds us that we're not as safe as we think we are, that isolation is dangerous, and that some fears never really go away. They just wait in the shadows. In our modern world, where we pride ourselves on being rational and scientific, the Kubikajiri persists in the back of the mind. It's there when you're walking alone at night. It's in that shiver when something unexpectedly touches your neck. It's in the primal awareness that humans aren't always the apex predators we imagine ourselves to be. And here's the most unsettling thing. In most Kubikajiri stories, the creature isn't defeated. It's driven away, maybe bound, but never truly destroyed. It remains out there, patient and hungry, waiting in the darkness for the next victim to become isolated and vulnerable. So the next time you're walking alone at night, and you get that feeling like something's watching you, that prickle on the back of your neck, maybe don't dismiss it so quickly. Maybe take the longer route where there are more lights and more people. Maybe call a friend. Because according to the legends, the Kubikajiri is still out there, waiting in the shadows between streetlights, patient as only something immortal can be, ready to wrap cold fingers around the throat of anyone who wanders too far from the safety of human connection. Sleep tight, everyone, and maybe keep the lights on tonight.